Good morning. I'm Jeff Adelman. I'm a board-certified civil trial lawyer located in Coral Springs. I'm on the Palm Beach County Justice Association board, and I'm here to talk to you today about diminished value and loss of use property damage automobile claims. I'm also an author of the newly released book, Choosing the Right Lawyer is No Accident, available on Amazon, or if you email me, I will send you a copy. It's a good guide for clients to understand the process of personal injury claims. But in any event, let's talk about diminished value and loss of use, because this is something that I kind of fell into a few years ago. I started litigating these cases, and I realized that this is an area of the law that kind of gets neglected by us personal injury lawyers. And clients, I'm sure you've found this, sometimes care a lot more about their cars than they do about their own bodies. So it's important to have at least a working knowledge of what these two areas are and that they are compensable by Florida law. So the first thing we're going to talk about is diminished values, sometimes called diminution of value. And again, we're talking about property damage on automobiles like this Rolls-Royce Phantom drop-head convertible that I tried that case in Palm Beach County a few years ago. Diminished value means what is the car worth after the repair is made to the car. So the day before the accident, what's it worth? The day that it's repaired and given back to the customer, what is it worth? And that has a value to it. And it's always the same. The calculations are the same according to the experts. But obviously, when you're dealing with a car of this caliber that retails for $636,000, it can be a very substantial amount. But even for a car that's worth $50,000 or $100,000, there's significant damages there. Everybody's seen the commercials, show me the Carfax. Well, diminished value is really what they're talking about when you're talking about show me the Carfax. Interesting to note, Carfax is not admissible in court because it is hearsay. So you still have to have an expert witness. You can't show a Carfax report. We've actually taken the deposition of the Carfax representative, and they have said that it is hearsay. So diminished value, the difference in value from the car not being in an accident to being in an accident. And it's really pretty simple to explain to a jury. If you're given two cars, one's not been in an accident, one has, are you going to pay the same price? Or are you going to try to finagle a little bit to get a better deal here? Or are you going to go with this one because it's got a pristine history? Those are why those reasons are why diminished value exists. Now, loss of use is one that you may have heard of diminished value, but loss of use you may not have. Loss of use is being deprived of your chattel, deprived of your property while the vehicle is being repaired. Now, a lot of people think, okay, well, the insurance company has to give me a rental car. It's not that simple, actually. They should give you a rental car, but the standard is what would it cost to rent a vehicle of like quality and brand. So when you're talking about an exotic car, you can see how that could be very expensive. A car like this could cost $1,500 a day to rent or more. A Ferrari 358 Italia could be about the same. So a lot of times I'm dealing with exotic cars, but again, this translates to any vehicle that you have. Now, loss of use, again, it's calculated by looking at the daily rental rate. This is supported by case law. I'm going to get into it. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of that, though, I want to talk a little bit about these claims because insurance companies really do hate them. The experts, we're dealing with hard numbers. The experts are usually pretty close in terms of the value. It's just that the insurance companies do not like the law on these cases. And the case law is on our side for once. So we should take advantage of it. But before you start running to all your files and looking to see if you can do it on every single case, there's a few things you need to keep in mind. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this if you have an active personal injury case going on because of all the issues that you're going to have dealing with the property damage and then dealing with a complicated personal injury case. In fact, most of the cases I have, either the injury case has been resolved and I've gotten it from another lawyer, or there's no injury at all. There's just property damage, it's been repaired, and the client wants to be compensated for these damages. The car can't be totaled. If it's a total loss, you don't get diminished value because there's a total loss to the vehicle. Makes sense. Third party. You cannot make these claims of diminished value and loss of use against your own carrier, first party. It needs to be against the negligent party. So what I often will tell a client is to have the vehicle repaired by their own insurance company, and then you preserve the property damage value from the third party. And a lot of people don't know this. The client's damages take priority over the repair costs paid by the client's own insurance company. So they may have paid out $20,000 and there's a $25,000 property damage limit. You get priority. So it makes sense if you have that collision coverage to go through that first. Plus, you have a little more control over the repair and other reasons. So I think that that's kind of important. It has to be economically worthwhile. Now, if somebody has a brand new Lexus that has a value to it, I think a bird just hit our window over here. We're high above Coral Springs, and that was a first. But in any event, it has to economically make sense. So we're talking about a brand new Lexus convertible or a Lexus ES350, and then we're talking about a 2013 Kia Soul. Okay? You have to have value to the car, and you got to look and see what the Kelley Blue Book value is. You have to see what the market is. Just do a quick Google search and see what the car is worth. I mean, it costs a lot of money to file a lawsuit. You want to make sure that the costs are not going to exceed what the actual diminished value and loss of use are. Now, if they give your client a rental car and they're driving a 2013 Kia Soul, you're not going to get anything extra on there. So just, keep those things in mind. But if somebody has a car that's 2 or 3 years old and it has a $30,000 plus value to it, it's worth taking a look at. At the very least, it's worth having some knowledge about this so you can guide your clients. Now, where does all this come from? Well, if you look right at our jury instructions, 501.2 H, property damage. Any damage to his or her property, his or her automobile, the measure of the damages is 1, difference between the value of the vehicle immediately before the incident and its value afterwards. That's exactly what I was telling you before about diminished value. It says it right there. 501.2 H, the first paragraph right there. Reasonable cost of repair. Now, usually you're not going to have this in one of these cases because the repairs are going to already be done. But obviously, that is something that can be compensated for. Now, the last one, this is the one the insurance companies really hate. Reasonable cost of repair, you shall also take into consideration any loss to claimant, the plaintiff, for towing or storage charges and being deprived of the use of his/her vehicle during the period reasonably required for its replacement or repair. So if your client's car is in the shop for 30 days and to rent a vehicle that's similar to that vehicle, it would be $200 a day. You can do the math. You're looking at a pretty big loss. When you're dealing with exotic cars and they're having to get parts from the Ferrari manufacturing plant in Italy, it can take months. And at $1,000 to $1,500 a day, it really does add up. But the law says that you can claim that. So the law is on our side with these property damage claims. The case that I cite that is the most important case involving loss of use is the Meakin v. Dreyer case, 209 Southern 2nd 252. Meakin, M-E-A-K-I-N versus Dreyer, D-R-E-I-E-R. It is a second DCA case from 1968. And the reason why it's so important is it plainly says when the plaintiff is deprived of loss of use of vehicle, rental value of equally equipped automobile is indicative of the loss. Now, it's not the only thing, but it's indicative of that loss. And I think that's really important to stress. Now, the other thing to note, it's at least the rental value of the chattel. That's true even if you don't rent another vehicle of the same kind. So if you have another vehicle you're using and you don't rent a vehicle, you still can be compensated for that because you've been deprived of your property. Let's say you like going outside and seeing your beautiful Lamborghini on your driveway every day, or looking in your garage and seeing it there, and you drive it once a month. That's not the standard. Standard is you don't have the property, and the rental value is the standard. Now, to be fair, when we have expert witnesses testify, I usually get the daily rental rate, I get the weekly rental rate, I get the monthly rental rate, so that we can give the jury something to look at here. And I want to talk a little bit here about, hang on one second real quick here. All right, bear with me 1 second. All right, so in any event, to get the diminished value on these cases, you do have to hire experts. To get loss of use, you do have to hire experts. It's important to do that. You can't just say this is what it is, just like in your personal injury case. So this is a summary for that vehicle I was showing you, the Phantom drop head convertible. We had a diminished value market appraisal summary, and you can see that my expert looked at other vehicles and what they were selling for. Similar vehicles, $299. Now, again, when this accident happened, my client had had the car for a few years, so it was not worth $636,000 at that time. It was worth only about $300,000. So, yeah, not in this life, but in any event, you can see, though, that that's how you calculate the vehicle's value, whether it be a Rolls-Royce, or whether it be a Honda, whether it be any type of car. You got to do a comparison, and your expert witness will do that. They'll do these reports for like $400. So if you have a client that you're really trying to help, that's available for them. If they're serious about putting down the money for it, it's about $400. And you'll get a report like this. It's really impressive. And it takes into account what the market is, the inherent diminished value. They look at what it sells for retail and wholesale, and they come up with the number. They also look into just the fact that there's been a repair, and that matters. That's the repair-related diminished value. When you're dealing with a lot of these cars, though, especially the exotics, the owners do not want a car that has any blemish on it whatsoever. So that's something to consider. You have a limited market, and then you hurt the value of the car even more. So that is something that you must consider when you're dealing with a car like this, which really is a work of art. A Rolls-Royce or Ferrari, these are handmade cars. When you look at them up close, you can see it. There's a reason why they're so expensive and why they look so beautiful. But in this particular case, considering the other vehicles that were available, looking at this vehicle and the repairs that were done to it, which were about $22,000, the adjusted total diminished fair market value, my expert witness testified that the vehicle lost $38,923 in value from being involved in this fender bender type of accident. So in any event, that's one side of the coin. For loss of use, when we're dealing with that, there are exotic car rental companies. You look at rental car companies that you've heard of, like Enterprise, Hertz, get somebody to testify what the value is. But for these type of cars, a lot of times you go to these exotic car rentals, and I have an expert witness that will testify what he's rented this exact car for. It's kind of irrefutable. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is how do juries respond to these cases? Well, it's very different than what we normally deal with because we're dealing with pure economics. So while for a personal injury case, you might want one type of juror on that case, for a property damage case like this, you'd want more analytical people on the jury. You'd want them to examine your experts because it's very digestible for them. It makes sense. The experts we use cross the T's, dot the I's. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. You don't want people who are going to be negative against your client for asking for these damages. And when you put it in terms of all cars should be looked at the same way when you're in front of a jury, whether it's a Ferrari or a Toyota, if you have one car on one side that hasn't been in an accident and one that has, are you going to pay the same price? It resonates. But you don't want people who are going to be bitter that some rich guy is trying to get compensation for the loss of his vehicle. And a lot of times when we have personal injury claims, we're looking for people who don't like big corporations or insurance companies. Those rules don't necessarily apply when you're dealing with these type of cases. And in fact, in one of the closing arguments that I did, I actually quoted Thurgood Marshall, who is a renowned civil rights attorney and the first African-American Supreme Court justice on our United States Supreme Court. The principles which would have governed with 10,000 at stake should also govern when thousands have become billions. That's the essence of equal justice under the law. So I kind of tie everything together with that to show that even one of the more liberal Supreme Court justices would agree that what we're doing is lawful and the right way to handle these types of matters, which are very interesting. You get to touch a lot of really fascinating vehicles that you never would see. And if you have any questions about these types of cases, feel free to give me a call anytime. My name is Jeff Adelman, and my number is 954-341-2777.
Jeff, we actually do have a live question.
Oh, good.
So Celicia Smith-Gordon said, "Hi, Jeff. Does the diminished value claim representation fall under contingency fee agreement or hourly? You indicated that the client would pay about $400 for the report."
You know, it really depends on the client in terms of the $400. Again, it has to be economically worthwhile to proceed with it. If you have a case like this, you don't mind paying it, but if somebody has a 2017 Honda Pilot, well, you have to make it economically worthwhile. And here's what I mean by that. When you are looking at a dollar amount of $38,000, let's just say we're dealing just with diminished value, you have to consider that you're going to have to file a proposal for settlement at some point. And you're going to have to tell the client, look, in order to make this worthwhile for me, I want to try to get attorney's fees and costs. So whatever number the values are from our experts, I'm going to do a proposal for settlement for 75% or a little less than that, so that when we present the full damages at trial, we have a chance to do that. So that's a really good question, and I neglected to talk about that. But the proposal for settlement on these cases has to be on your mind because it is a straight contingency fee case. So your client has to know what your attorney's fees are going to be, and there has to be, if they're going to go through a trial, it has to be worth their while, and it has to be worth your while. So if you don't have that chance for the attorney's fees and costs, you're really cheating yourself and cheating your client of the opportunity to get full damages. But you've got to have a meeting with the client and explain this in advance before you file the lawsuit. Because then if you're in the lawsuit and you're saying you want to offer 75% less than what your experts are saying, well, you might have a fight on your hands. And at the end of the day, even if you win, you might lose economically. Thank you, Celicia.
If anybody else has questions, you can type them in the comments now. Otherwise, give Jeff a call or an email. Absolutely. My email is jeff@adelmanlawyers.com. Website, ADELMAN lawyers.com. Again, feel free to give me a call anytime, 954-341-2777. Thank you for the opportunity.